Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppelOutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters. Tired of the same old, same old? Check out the new Affinity Rod Series from Top Tier Tackle. Soft touch EVA split grip, custom 30-ton nano blank, C-grade reel seat, top performance stainless steel, tangle-free guides, ultra lightweight, superior impact and fracture resistant, and a limited 3-year warranty. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Top Tier Tackle LLC. Visit their website at www.t3rods.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Winner's Circle. Our guest today is not a household word around the world of professional bass fishing, although he is now. He's got 3 top 10 finishes in tour events. He qualified to fish the BASS Elite Series in 2012 out of the Northern Opens, but he turned it down. He fished the FLW Central Open Series this year, qualified for the championship on Cumberland, which he just won, and that championship earned him $235,000. Welcome to the show, Chris Malone. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
That's quite a paycheck.
Oh yeah, it was a very unexpected paycheck. You know, you go to that tournament, you wanna do good, but the average Joe, it's just hard to believe that you can win it. And everything worked out. It was just a magical week.
That's really exciting. Let's start by talking about your pro career because you've kind of been in it and kind of been out of it. You've got some things that you do that keep you in the fishing world. But I wanted to talk about that BASS Elite Series that you qualified for in 2012. And there are so many guys out there that would jump on the opportunity, but you turned it down. What was going on?
We honestly, we ended up, the third tournament ended up costing me the elite bid.
Oh, I see.
I was leading the points going into the last tournament, had a bad tournament the last tournament, didn't get the call. But I'd already made my mind up I wasn't going to the elites. That's when my boat business dealership was starting. We were starting to roll good, getting everything going, and I just didn't think I could afford the time away to pursue that. You know, I thought that as a whole, the boat dealership's a more solid profession than trying to catch bass for me.
Absolutely. You chose to pursue professional fishing on the business side of things. I'd like to hear about Malone's Marine. I've been on the website this week looking at it. It seems like a pretty cool operation. How long have you had it, and what's it all about?
We started in 2010, 2011. Started pretty small like everybody else, and we've grown up to, we're not a big operation. We got 5 guys or so here that work full time. But we sell Bullet, Bass Cat, and Phoenix bass boats, and Avalon pontoons, and Crestliner aluminum boats. So we stay pretty busy.
Now, it's interesting. You mentioned you have those 3 different lines of bass boats. Was there a conscious decision made to fish that Phoenix boat in the Toyota Championship event, or is that just the boat you usually use?
Yeah, Phoenix put out the $35,000 contingency money this year, and usually I'm able just to run a boat off the shelf and use it as a demo. But this year I personally had to buy my own boat and register it through Phoenix to be eligible for the Phoenix first flight money. So I bought me a new 921 Elite this year and rigged it out how I wanted it, and got fortunate and paid off for an extra $35,000.
So that wasn't even a shop boat?
It was a boat that I ordered for myself. I ordered that boat for myself. Custom boat, picked the collars out. I rigged it here, or the guys rigged it here, and it was built just for me.
Very cool. Very cool. So you fished the FLW Central Toyota Series this year, and it's a 3-event qualifier. What made you decide to jump back in? Is there that kind of burning desire to be a tour angler, or is there something else going on there? Just wanted to get in and be around it.
It was mostly the championship being at Lake Cumberland. Cumberland's a lake I got a lot of history with. I mean, I'm a member of a local bass club here, and we go down every year. And I bought a house down at Cumberland a year and a half ago. And I just got a lot of history with Lake Cumberland. And then, $200,000 first place prize kind of makes you a little anxious to try to get to that as well. But the big draw was going to Lake Cumberland.
Okay, so you finish in the top 26 in the series, which gets you that invitation. How did those qualifying events go? Were they how did they go for you?
I had a good tournament at Chickamauga. Got the check at Chickamauga, and I went to Pickwick for the second one, and I left some on the table at Pickwick. Ended up 70th place or something like that. And I went to the final tournament at Dale Hollow. I was 27th, just out of the cut line.
Yeah.
And I had to catch them at Dale Hollow, and I got 5th at Dale Hollow. And that brought me up into 16th, 17th place for the year. And that's what qualified me for the championship. But the Dale Hollow tournament was much more stressful than the championship tournament, truthfully, just to try to get there.
Isn't that something when you put a little bit on the line there, when you get that little taste of something, and it just creates its own stress. It's interesting how that works.
Dale had a lot of stress. Just look on the outside looking in, and Dale was a grind just to get a bite. I had a little bit of an inkling of pattern going at Cumberland that I thought I could definitely catch some bass. Really didn't think I could compete to win, but the lake just fished hard at Cumberland. It didn't really show itself. I mean, I was predicting 15, 16 pound a day is what you was going to need at Cumberland to win that thing, and it just didn't materialize at all.
So this whole season was set up with the idea that you wanted to qualify because you wanted a chance on Cumberland, which is a lake you're very comfortable with. That's as good a reason as any, as I can see. This segment of the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is brought to you in part by Top Tier Tackle. With over 30 years of experience in the rod building industry, look for Top Tier's XT, Affinity, and Valor series this fall, wherever fine tackle is sold. We're talking to Chris Malone. He is the winner of the FLW Toyota Series Championship at Lake Cumberland. And so coming into this event, how did you expect fish to set up for this event?
I was worried they was going to be more of a fall pattern instead of a winter pattern. Because when I started practicing about 3 weekends before the tournament started. And the water temperature was about 64 degrees. And the fish weren't set up on the vertical winter stuff where they spend their winter time all winter. They were more on the flatter stuff. But the water got colder. It lost about 10 degrees in that 2.5 weeks of time there. And then the water dropped also about 3 foot in water level. And it kind of repositioned them fish more to the vertical bluff ends, things like that, channel swing, that those smallmouth stay on until next spring when they go to spawn. And it kind of helped play it in my hands. Those fish have changed that much. And when it got into a true winter tournament, it really helped me because that's when it really got on that tailspin bite. And that was a little ace in the hole that me and a couple buddies have thrown for a long time. But your average guy just doesn't throw that.
Well, and I want to get to that in a couple of minutes because that's pretty interesting as well. But so you're a guy that was wanting winter patterns. You want those fish out there suspended over cover or structure. For most people, that's a death sentence seeing those suspended fish. But you're actually wanting them in that situation.
They really didn't suspend as much as they would get up against the bluffs.
Oh, okay.
The bluff would come down and you'd have like a small shelf. Almost like a small stair step. Mm-hmm. And those fish would come down, they'd sit on those little shelves and then those little corners, and you could throw that tailspin up there and it flutter down right against that bluff and get a reaction bite. When the water gets another 4 or 5 degrees colder, they'll pull off that rock and get out over the channel and really get tough to catch because that's when they really start to suspend. That's when you start catching them on a jerk bait or Alabama rig or floating fly, that kind of stuff. So the water was still too warm for them to get out there. So they stayed really high in the water column, but they was real close to deep water where they're going to spend the rest of the year.
Now you targeted smallmouth, but my understanding is that Cumberland's got a pretty tough slot limit or a limit size on smallmouth. 18-inch, was that lifted for the tournament, or was it 18 inches in the tournament?
They got an exemption for this tournament,
Okay.
which made it 15.
Okay.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
15-inch largemouth, 15-inch smallmouth, 12-inch spots, and Cumberland's just plumb full smallmouth. It's got considerably more smallmouth than it does largemouth. And with that 15-inch exemption, it frees you up to go and 100% just target smallmouth. Because, in this tournament, I probably weighed in probably at least 4 under 18-inch smallmouth, two on the day 2 and probably 2 on day 3 that were under 18 that was, wouldn't have been a keeper in a normal day.
Okay. Now, in normally, do people normally target smallmouth on Cumberland, or is that 18-inch length make it kind of hard to do that?
Now, this time of year, you need to target the smallmouth at Cumberland. In the spring, you can do the largemouth and win, but in a 3-day tournament in wintertime at Cumberland, you just cannot win with largemouth. You have to target smallmouth.
Well, I've always heard of Cumberland as a smallmouth lake, and I didn't, but I had not known that they had such a large length limit on that. And if you're putting all your cast into trying to catch 18 inches, that could be tough other times of the year, I would think.
It's got a lot of big smallmouth in it, but an 18 smallmouth's a big old fish.
Yeah.
So it's that's a tough limit, but it does have a bunch of those big smallmouth in it.
Okay, so coming in, you said you had kind of an extended practice period. When you got to the lake and when you started practicing, was it setting up the way you wanted it to, or it took some time? You said the water temperature had to drop?
I went down a couple weekends prior to that, and it wasn't setting up how I wanted to. And then about Sunday of official practice, about 3 days before the tournament started, I run into a little wad of them on some vertical stuff on my tail spin, and that really clued me in on how to fish. And then Monday, I caught them extremely well, and I was able to run that pattern in the tournament after that the whole way through. I just run a lot of new water, hopped around a little bit there on the last day to find some new fish. But that Sunday and Monday of official practice, what really clued me into the wintertime deal.
What's your thought about hooking fish during pre-fish? Is it necessary, or do you try to avoid it? What do you think about that?
Man, it depends on the lake, and it depends on how it sets up. I try to avoid it as much as possible. Man, around here in Ohio, it's kiss of death because we just don't have very many fish.
Same here.
Cumberland's a whole lot better. I mean, those fish will replenish, more so down there at this time of year. But I try to play it by ear, catch me a few fish, get an idea of what I want to fish in the tournament, and then I go and fish the tournament the day of the tournament. I don't try to script everything. It's the first day, there's 221 boats, and I was boat 210. So, the first day I decided I was just going to fish my way south to where I was planning on fishing. And the third place I pulled up, I caught 2 great big ones. And that's when I just scrapped everything I had down south and settled down, hunkered down where I was at. And I weighed 15 1/4 the first day off water I'd never fished in practice at all.
That's a really key thing there. We talk about intuition a lot of times. It looks good. You can't go buy something that looks good, right? You gotta fish that.
Yeah. When it gets in the winter time, you can visualize the bank and see a lot of what you're wanting to fish. With that water down, you can visually see the bank, and it'll give you the telltale signs of what you're wanting to fish. As far as the steeper sparks of the bank, the rock changes, where it would go from bluff to a slip or a bluff to a rock break or table rock, and you was able to visually see that stuff, and that was the great thing about this pattern is I could run it and didn't have to fish it. I could visually see it and know, hey, as long as it was relating to a main river channel, I could catch a few bass right there.
That's just a great lesson. You know, the people, our viewers, when they see this, I always try to point that out to them. You know, so many times you hear that little voice in your head that says, "Hey, you got to fish this." And if you're on your game, you're going to go fish that. But when you're having a tough day and you're struggling, it's like, I don't want to waste my time doing that. You know, but that's a great example of when that little voice tells you to do something and you do it and it pays off.
That's always when I fish good. It seems like when my instincts are good and I got the confidence to trust my instincts.
Exactly. That's what it is.
That's a big thing, is having the confidence to trust what your gut's telling you, because usually it don't lie. You know.
No, it's saved days for me before, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I was able to do that first day and get a really nice bag that first day, and that kind of set me up for the rest of the tournament.
Are you looking for a bass rod that won't break your bank? Introducing the XT series from Top Tier Tackle. Proprietary carbon nano blank, grade A full cork handle and foregrip, top performance stainless steel, tangle-free guides, lightweight and durable, and a 1-year limited warranty. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Top Tier Tackle LLC. Visit their website at www.t3rods.com.
We're talking to Chris Malone. He is the winner of the FLW Toyota Series Championship on Lake Cumberland. Great story so far. That tailspin is a special bait. You mentioned a lot of people don't know about it. It's very underrated. Why do you think it's so underrated?
It's not flashy. It doesn't, I've watched fishing shows for 35 years. And unless Billy Westmore was on that fishing show, you've never seen a tailspin thrown.
That's right.
You know, you can go through all the professionals that fish, and we watch them on Bassmaster and FLW and Major League Fishing, and I don't think I've ever seen a tailspinner thrown in any one of those circuits. You know, it's a really regional thing to that central Tennessee, Bell Hollow, Cumberland area that Billy Westmore started 40, 50 years ago. And it just hasn't caught on around the nation. And maybe it doesn't work around it. I don't know. But I do know in the wintertime on those ponds right there, it's about as good as it comes in the right situation.
Well, it definitely works in other lakes, because I know we catch them in Southern California on that in the wintertime. And I think maybe why people don't talk about it more is because you don't see a lot of tournaments taking place in the winter.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. It's I enjoy the wintertime fishing because it's easier for me to get away from the shop.
Yeah.
Time. You know, it's not as busy. I can sneak away, and I got a couple buddies that are extremely good wintertime fishermen, and they've taught me a lot. And it's just, man, it really paid off for last week.
Do you ever target schooling fish with those tail spinners like that?
I have. Usually the schooling fish in the wintertime, I end up catching them more on a Damiki rig or something like that. But that tail spinner is the same thing as say a silver buddy and part in most places. And when they get offshore and get in those guts and stuff, heading into the hollers and stuff like that, it'll definitely catch them.
That's for sure. Now, tell me how do you fish this? Is it a vertical jig, or it looked like you were throwing it up against the bank a little bit?
This particular tournament, I caught most of them on the fall, and okay. I caught most of them on the initial fall. Truthfully, just like you pitch a jig to a brush, to a lay down or something, and that's why I say that those fish were over deep water, but they were shallow, where the water was still 53, 54. That the cold weather hadn't pushed them down in the water column. So most of those fish come on the first pitch, or after it hit the first shelf. When I'd hop it off the first shelf, I catch them on the second. I did catch one or two just slowly winding it in after I'd fished it one or two hops, but the majority, 90%, were caught in that first little pitch to the bank or the first hop.
Now, are you looking at live optics when you're doing this? Are you using that kind of electronic stuff?
I pay attention to the live scope. I run Garmin's on my boat this year. First year running Garmin's, and it's an eye opener.
Yeah.
And it did make it it opened your eyes and got you ready for when you could see bait in these places where they were setting up, almost like a bird dog pointing them out before you got to them.
Okay.
You know, if you was bird hunting. I didn't visually catch any fish off my Garmin's, but it did get me ready in the areas where I seen the bait to really hunker down and fish those areas extremely hard.
Okay, sounds good. You know, it's becoming a thing. It's so much this year that so many people are and that live optic is such a big deal. But it's interesting to hear how you use it. You're looking at bait that tells you that's where to cast.
Yeah, it's. I mean, wintertime's all about those fish staying comfortable and eating. That's all they're worried about, staying comfortable and eating. And I can relate to that a little bit.
You and me both. Okay, so you had the lead on day one, fell to third on day two. Didn't have a bad day on day two.
I was third on day one.
Oh my gosh, did I get my numbers backwards?
Yeah, I was third on day one, third on day two.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw that you led the first day. Okay. Your weight was a little bit less on day two, just a matter of bites or
I think I was starting to lean on my fish a little bit too hard.
okay.
Day one and day two, I kind of stayed in the exact same little area, fishing most of the same spots. And day two, also, I had a little bit of misfortune. I lost both of my biggest fish I had hooked on day two. So day one, I fished an excellent day. Day two, I should have had the same weights on day two I had on day one, truthfully. Just didn't fish good. Just didn't fish that good. And then
There's a couple guys on, I'm sorry, there's a couple guys on day two that caught them really good too, right?
Yeah, it really changed. The weather was so different from day one to day two and then day two to day three. It was really tough to keep up with the fish. You know, the day one leader, I think he caught 2 or 3 on day two. And the boy that was second on day one, he blanked on day two. And man, he's an excellent local fisherman. One of the guys I'd had on my fantasy fishing team on that tournament to really catch him on Nick.
And then going into day three, it looked like everybody really struggled. I mean, you caught 12 pounds, which isn't bad, but I guess you'd say you struggled less than everybody else.
It was a struggle. It got slick. The sun come up. It was one of them nice fishing days that are terrible for catching big smallmouth. Yeah. And I made an extremely good call on day three. I started in an area where I'd only caught one bite. I only had one bite on day two. But the area set up well, and I fished it late on day two. So I started there on day three, and there was a really good early morning bite. And I caught my limit hour and a half, 2 hours that last day. And that really freed me up.
Oh, yeah.
To jump around and try some different stuff to try to get some bigger fish. And I had an opportunity or two on day three to have a big bag and just didn't happen. Just didn't work out. It's smallmouth fishing.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. They don't just jump in the boat when you hook them. They like to fight a little bit.
Yes, yeah, they're pretty temperamental.
Yeah. Now, I read somewhere that you told a friend that if you won the event, you were gonna sponsor him, or what were you gonna do? You're gonna pay his entry fees?
I got a buddy that, and I'll be true. Me and Ryan are team partners for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. And he had fished the FLW tour in I believe 15 and 16. Got away from it. He had a child, probably about 16 or 17, and he got third or fourth, I believe, this year in the Northern Division points, and requalified for the tour for next year. Didn't know if he was going to fish. He said he was, said he wasn't, said he was, said he wasn't. And we were rooming together at my house down there for this tournament. And I truly predicted him to win the tournament because, I mean, in practice, if I caught 12 pounds, he caught 14. You know, if I found 5 or 6 good spots, he found 7 or 8. And he knows the lake better than I do. And on that Monday prior to the tournament starting was the day he had to pay his entry fee, his deposits for this year, for next year in the FLW tour. He made his deposits, then he was mad that he made them because he didn't think, you know, it's a lot of stress. I mean,
oh my gosh.
It's a lot of stress. And he's got a 3-year-old boy and a young wife, and and it's a lot of stress. And he was planning on that tournament helping pay for some of his entry fees. And he ended up 21st. He got a nice check, and he would have been top 10 just a bad second day, just a misfortune. And we was eating dinner that night after the second day, going the third day, and he told me, he said, "You're going to win this tournament tomorrow, bud." And I told him, I said, "Well," I said, "if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But if I do, you don't have to worry about your entry fees for next year. I'll pay you." And
Wow.
he said, I said, I'm telling you, if I'm blessed enough to win this tournament, I feel like I owe it to you, because he had really taught me an awful lot in wintertime fishing. And we've shared a lot of ideas and stuff throughout the practice and stuff as well. And being able to win it, and then being able to help him with it, that means as much just about as winning. It's me and him's pretty tight, and I mean, we're going back down to Cumberland next week after Christmas to fish for between Christmas and New Year's. So, it's money's great, but the friendships that in fishing can't be bought, and that's what it comes down to with me.
That's a great story. I read it, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about it, because that's just a great story. So what's going on for you next? Are you you're gonna stay with the boat shop, obviously, but are you gonna expand and fish a few more tournaments? I kind of feel like you might be cut out for this kind of work.
I don't know. I looked at the Toyotas for next year, and they put the championship at Pickwick, and Pickwick doesn't excite me near as much as what Cumberland does. But how do you walk away as well after what you've just done?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at some tournaments. I've already qualified for a couple championships next year in some local things. I'm just trying to make sure the dates work out. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll be truthful with you. It's probably 50-50 next year whether I fish the Toyotas or I don't. And even if I do, I might not fish the Centrals. I might jump up and fish the Northerns, fish a different division. I just got to play it by ear. I'm really not sure, because the shop does take a lot of my time. And with the championship not being at Cumberland next year, I could say it's not as exciting for me. So I'm just going to play it by ear.
That's perfect. That's perfect. What's the longest someone has driven, the furthest distance someone has come to buy a boat from you?
Man, he didn't drive to me, but I saw one in Washington State.
Is that right?
Yeah, I saw one in Washington State.
Now, did you have to deliver it to him, or how'd you deliver that?
Shipped it, put it on a truck.
Shipped it, put it on
a truck. But I did have a boy just Monday of this week come from right at Beaver Lake, right there, Rogers, Arkansas, and pick one up. So
wow.
The internet's made the world a whole lot smaller.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Well, Chris, thanks for being with us today. Let you get back to work. Your story is a great story. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch with you, okay?
I appreciate having me on the show.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters.